If you know your alphabet.
I'd like to take his face off.
Welcome to Enter the Cage, where we review the films of our greatest national treasure, Hollywood's most interesting man, Nicolas Cage. I'm Tyler Flynn, aka the Whedon Fan, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Nate Treese.
Hello, love being here. Love you, love this.
And Bonnie Jordan.
Hey guys.
And we're joined by our another co-host, my good friend, Chris.
Hey, how's it going?
So, as we like to do with our first-time guest hosts, we ask them when they were first introduced to Nicolas Cage. So, Chris, what was your first Nicolas Cage experience?
My first Nick Cage experience, I'd have to say, was probably a million reruns of Con Air on TNT, which my mother feels compelled to watch every time it is on. And I knew at an early age that was not any accent I had ever heard before or since. So I was intrigued from a very early age by the Cage, and I continue to be so.
Yeah, I think he's kind of doing like a Cajun Bayou accent. I don't know what he's going for there.
Who knows?
Cajun by way of Texas, maybe Canadian.
I think he just went to like a theme, like a southern themed bar in like West Hollywood or something, and just tried to synthesize all the accents he heard into one.
He ate at a Lone Star once.
That and his hair make that movie endlessly rewatchable.
Oh yeah. And can't wait to talk about it. Where instead we gotta talk about this dumb movie.
Oh, no. Oh, save those opinions, Nate. Now we're going to move on to our next segment that we like to call...
Big Bad Face Off.
Fake Fact Face Off is our elaborate way of playing Two Truths and a Lie. One of us comes up with 3 facts about Nicolas Cage, and one of them is false, and it's up to the rest of us to determine which one that is. And this week, Nate is taking the lead, so go ahead, Nate. What are your 3 facts?
Okay, here are my 3 facts. This first one is a little bit about Mr. Cage's love life. So fact number 1 is as follows. In order to successfully woo his first wife, the actress Patricia Arquette, Nicolas Cage procured the autograph of notoriously reclusive author J.D. Salinger in an attempt to woo her. So that's fact number 1.
All right.
Fact number 2 is, in 2013, during the press tour for the animated film The Croods, Nicolas Cage revealed in interviews that he allowed the voice directors and Foley artists to waterboard him in order to get a particular sound effect they were after. Fact number 3, in a 2010 Playboy interview, Cage revealed himself to be a lifelong fan of punk music and the Sex Pistols in particular, and proceeded to tell a story of how twice during the 80s he approached Sex Pistols lead singer Johnny Rotten in order to get the rights to make a biopic, and received a beating both times.
Wow. Regardless of which one of those is fake, those are all super elaborate.
They really are.
I stepped up my game.
I know.
You guys got it last time.
I'm so conflicted now. Oh my goodness.
All right, let's do. I want to hear Chris's guess first.
I'm gonna go with the third one.
Okay. We got 1 for the Sex Pistols beatdown. All right, Bonnie, go ahead.
Definitely feel like the J.D. Salinger one is bullshit.
Okay, we got 1 for Catcher in the Rye. Or maybe one of his other numerous well-known books. Oh, wait. Tyler.
I'm almost positive that I read the first one in the biography of his I'm going through or online somewhere. I don't know if you changed the author to throw me off, but I'm going to discount that one. So it's between the Sex Pistols one and the Croods one. I'm gonna go with number 2, the Crudes fact.
Got us all
Okay.
over the place, Nate.
I love this.
Very tricksy.
Love this. Okay, so the fake fact is number 3. Chris was correct.
Oh!
So let's just go through these. When he was trying to seduce Patricia Arquette, she actually, at first, started giving him like ridiculous tasks.
Yeah,
to
it
go
wasn't
through
just
with
that. It
him,
was a series of things.
It was a series of them, and they culminated with go get J.D. Salinger's autograph. And I think between like the time that he wrote Catcher in the Rye and like the 80s or whenever it was that this happened, he had made like 2 public appearances or something like that. And so she was like, he's never going to get this. And lo and behold, he managed to do it.
And they divorced a year and a half later.
Yes, they did.
But
well, no, they technically they separated 9 months later. And they didn't get divorced until like until like 2001.
no.
Yeah.
It's the quest that counts.
Yeah, exactly. So number 2, I found this. I was just watching some Nick Cage like weird interviews, supercut on YouTube, and he basically revealed, and this is the amazing part. Okay, he revealed that he was game for. When we talk about the process for the Crudes, he revealed that he was totally game for being waterboarded because there's a scene where Greg, or whatever the name of like the caveman that he plays, is in like water and he's yelling or something. And so he just said, yeah, I'll try that. But here's the crazy thing is that the take they used was the one where he just pretended to be in water. So they didn't even use the take from when he was waterboarded.
That's him and his method acting again.
And so number 3 is a little bit, there are elements of truth to it because he is a huge fan of punk rock, and Johnny Ramone of the Ramones was the best man at his wedding with Priscilla Presley, or Lisa Marie Presley. I'm sorry, the Elvis Presley's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I know, he never tried to. Because who would go up to Johnny Rotten and ask for something like that? That's crazy. That's asking for trouble.
Chris, what made you pick number 3?
I just don't think the Sex Pistols were around long enough for Nick Cage to get in a scuffle with them. That was my whole logic behind it.
That's pretty good. I should have phrased it to be like former Sex Pistols vocalist. Then that would have thrown you off a little bit.
Oh.
Probably would have, yeah.
All right, good stuff.
Well, thanks for that, Nate. You did a fantastic job at tricking all of us.
Yes.
So now we're going to move into the main portion of our podcast. This week, we watched a period piece featuring mobsters, murder, and incredible music that's not The Godfather. We watched The Cotton Club.
It was the age of jazz, and gangsters, and bootleg booze. The age of everything but innocence. A handful of mobs ruled the city. A handful of men ruled the mobs. New York was their kingdom. This was their playground. The Cotton Club.
The Cotton Club is an ensemble piece focused on the actual Cotton Club, which was a real-life Harlem jazz club that flourished during the 20s and 30s during the Prohibition era. The film follows Dixie Dwyer, the lead character, who is an aspiring trumpet player who kind of falls in with mobsters, not really intentionally, but it just happens, and it follows him as he charts his path to fame. And he's trying to manage his life between his music and the mafia, and he ends up falling in love with the girlfriend of Dutch Schultz, who is a ruthless bootlegger. And then besides their story, we also get to see various other characters as they all live their life in the glitz and glamour of the Cotton Club. So what was everyone's initial impressions of this film?
I'm going to go ahead and reveal that even though I said this movie was dumb at the top, I actually, in fact, thought it was really good.
You were just all over the place this week,
All
Nate.
over the place.
I don't know what to believe.
That's right. Maybe I'm lying right now. Maybe I did hate it. No, I actually thought it was great. Thought it was fantastic.
I loved it as well.
I liked the way it was shot. Not quite. I almost couldn't believe it was a Coppola movie, except because he just took so few risks with it. like in terms
my
of the way it was
goodness.
shot and
I
stuff.
could definitely tell it's a Coppola movie.
This might be the first movie we've watched where what's going on behind the scenes is just as, if not more interesting than what's actually on the screen. Because if you go into the behind the scenes stuff on this movie, it is insane. And everyone knows Apocalypse Now for Coppola is like his masterpiece that was a disaster, but I feel like this one should be on that level in what went into making this picture.
Well, I think the reason why it's not is just because people remember Apocalypse Now, and it was like a huge. Well, I don't know if it was a huge hit at the time, but it was like
The
very
critical
well
acclaim.
talked about. Yeah, but this one was just people were like, it was pretty good, but then I don't think it succeeded at the box office.
No, it was a huge bomb.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it only
part of the
made
reason
25%
why
budget.
part of the reason why Zoetrope, Coppola's studio, went under. Yeah. So, what did you think about it, Bonnie?
You know, there were some really well done scenes, but it seemed all over the place.
Again, that goes back to what happened off screen, really,
Yeah.
which we will get into. But you liked it in general?
If it had been like a straight musical, then it would have been really good. But I think they tried to add in like too much drama, and it just seemed really disjointed to me. Because it was like violent scene, dance scene, violent scene, dance scene, violent scene. And like most of the violent scenes just seemed so contrived. Like I didn't know why everyone was angry. They just all were. And it was just very strange.
Right. It doesn't have that focused narrative that The Godfather does to compare it to Coppola's other gangster movie.
Right. Yeah, there wasn't very much focus. I
Mhm.
would say that.
And Chris, what were your thoughts?
I kind of felt the same way. It seemed like several disjointed plots kind of taking place at the same time, that some of the ways they came together felt kind of forced. But overall, it was pretty good. I thought there was a couple shots that looked very Coppola, but then the rest of it, like you mentioned, played it kind of safe. But there was also had some bizarre moments that seemed out of place with the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Comparing this one to Rumblefish, it's almost in a way not a real sequel, but I think of it as a sequel because there's so many actors who appear in that also appear in this. And then in terms of style, like Rumblefish was very stylized and heavy on the artistry, but I didn't care about any of the characters. Here, it also had the artistry, which I loved, and that was the only thing that carried me through liking this movie, because I didn't really connect with these characters, but I wanted to. So it was like Rumblefish, but a better version of that.
Yeah, I liked it better than Rumblefish.
Yeah.
I did too, actually, even though I was more favorably inclined towards Rumblefish than the two of you were.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, well, I did notice a lot of the recurring Coppola collaborators. You know, you had Tom Waits looking fantastic in a tux.
He was amazing. I liked him a lot better in this movie than Rumblefish.
I thought he was disturbingly normal looking for Tom Waits. I was off put by how not bizarre he was.
Yeah. And you know, Lawrence Fishburne returning from Apocalypse Now and then Rumblefish and maybe something in between. I don't know. Diane Lane,
yep.
returning. Not, in my opinion, doing a particularly good job.
No.
Nominated for a Razzie for this one.
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well deserved.
Now, she looked amazing, though, I have to say. Like,
She was beautiful.
the costumes were impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone just looks so fucking dapper, you guys.
Even more than Rumblefish, here she really, because of the setting, looks like that classic Hollywood movie starlet. She just has a gorgeous face and a gorgeous figure, but her acting was, I don't know what she was going for. It was kind of like a femme fatale, but then also like a broken girl. I was really confused.
Well, everybody else. Well, that has more to do with problems with the script than her. I think it was just that she was using a lot of slang and stuff that like just didn't fit for how her voice sounded. You know, everyone else is kind of able to do that like listen here, that kind of thing. Especially Richard Gere, who is great. And our boy Nicolas Cage, by the way, really good performance, I thought. He's not given a whole lot to do, but he does a lot with it. And everyone's kind of is pretty convincing, especially Bob Hoskins, like with the things they're saying. And
he and Frenchie, I forget what the actor's name was. They were two of my favorite characters in this whole piece.
They're great.
They just had that real brotherly love relationship. It was very nice.
Yeah, I'm sure that's all that you were meant to get from the subtext.
Wow.
I do also think Gregory Hines was fantastic. I love Gregory Hines. I think he's fantastic. He's one of my favorite actors just because he's really likable, but also like a fantastic dancer and a pretty good singer too. And so anytime he's in a movie, you got to get some dancing out of him. And in this one, he just does such a good job. And then I think they even had like a special credit like for him where it was like improvography because he just like came up with a lot of those like dancing moves on the spot.
Oh wow.
Just fantastic.
Yeah, he was incredible. Going back to Diane Lane though, when she first appears in the film, she's like just some girl who walks in off the street in the club, and then Richard Gere ends up taking her back to her room after she has a drunken night. I didn't realize that was Diane Lane until she later came back as Dutch's girlfriend about 10 minutes later. I just thought it was just a random extra.
No.
With the way I know her hat covered her hair, and I just didn't notice it, and then I realized she was like the leading lady. It's like, oh, she's in this movie and is doing things, but not very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as you said, it might just be the script.
Yeah. Well, I don't think she was given, and that's the thing too, is that Coppola has kind of a reputation as being like, as like really like working with his actors, maybe not working well with them, but at least trying to get like their best out of them. And so I'm not sure what exactly was going on there, but it's just really noticeable. I do think a lot of the plots were disjointed, like stuff that wasn't quite tied together, but it just kind of reminded me of like a big ensemble cast type movie that doesn't
didn't quite
really
get there though, is the thing. Like it felt like there should be either more or less integration of the plot lines.
Right.
And especially because they're constantly going back and forth between the dance scenes and the violent scenes.
Well, I thought that was a good juxtaposition because all this stuff it's basically just like all this stuff is happening like behind closed doors and drawn curtains, like in this office. It's basically just to say like the New York City, or at least specifically the Harlem of like the Prohibition era, was a place where a lot of like music and entertainment stuff was happening, but the flip side of that is that a lot of like criminal activity and a lot of violence was happening too.
Yeah, it's kind of like the movie Casino, where you have all the glitz and glam of the setting, but then behind closed curtains, it's a very violent and dark world.
Right, and I felt like, in a way, like the film did a good job of being, because it makes you ask the question, like if everyone's just going around like shooting each other and like beating the shit out of people, then why does anyone stay? And why would anyone like even want to like be in like the show business? And so you have all these kind of like musical numbers and dancing stuff. Because it's like, well, yeah, because that's the place to be if you want to, be around like music and entertainment, and it's just kind of the price you pay.
Having watched Fast Times, we see how difficult it is to make a good ensemble piece. Because if you don't have that tight script, then everything feels very aloof and disjointed.
Well, usually when I see a credit that says story by, and it's like a bunch of different people, and then it says screenplay by, and it's different people, that kind of like as an indicator to me that there were a lot of different visions for the film that went in a lot of different directions. And then, of course, seeing Mario Puzo's name show up in the credits, I was like, oh boy.
I felt it would have benefited, like, they did bring this up a little bit, but it should have been Richard Gere, his story, which I did like his character, but then also Gregory Hines and the whole issue of black performers being allowed to dance and sing in the club, but not actually attend the club. Like, the whole racism aspect, that should have been a huge focal point. And it's kind of brought up, but not really. I feel like the mobster element overshadows that. And I felt like that was a better plot point to focus on.
Well, I think the unfortunate reality of that was just that they were like, audiences aren't gonna want this. They're gonna expect from a Coppola movie like a bunch of like mobster old timey stuff. Like, we have to keep the interesting and like relatively under examined like aspect of like, you know, American history and specifically American entertainment history like to a minimum, so that people will come and see this movie about like gangsters shooting each other.
And you could still do that. Like Bumpy Rhodes, he was a gangster and he barely had 10 minutes of screen time, and I thought Lawrence Fishburne did a phenomenal job for what little he did.
Oh yeah,
have.
the little speech he gives, Sandman,
or when
was
he
really
beats
good.
that white guy's ass. Like, yes,
yeah. And then
get him, Lawrence Fishburne.
He's just like, don't you interrupt me.
He is such an intimidating presence, no matter what he's in.
Yeah, he was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's redundant to say, but looks damn good in tux.
Oh yes,
true.
So let's talk a little bit about Nicolas Cage then.
Yes, I was about to segue into that. I didn't like him at first. He just seemed like an arrogant, aspirational punk. But once he actually starts to work for the mobster, for Dutch Schultz, and get into the racket, he becomes a more sympathetic character, especially when he accidentally guns down those kids, spoiler, and then is on the run. Like, he's kind of, I don't know, he's a scoundrel, but you kind of feel sorry for him at the same time.
What the hell happened to you? How'd you get so wrong?
How's Mom?
You know what she's going through.
What she's going through? Does everybody hate me?
You hate shooting a kid. I know you say you didn't do it. Still, that kid's dead. And you're gonna take the rap.
Well, on one hand, you know, because like you can't help but feel like this idiot, you know, like things aren't going to go well for him because he's like deliberately like getting into like, you know, he's like being Dutch Schultz's attack dog, basically. And you know, he's specifically like, hey, look at me. You know, of course I've been out there messing with like the rackets in Harlem, and it's like, ugh. But then, you know, you see him you kind of root for him a little bit, where he's like, hey, we're getting like, you know, a lot of heat's coming on us. We're getting really hammered by like all these hits that we're doing for you, and we're not getting hardly any money.
Yep.
And then Dutch just tries to give him like some like walking
Chump
around money. Yeah, and so I was kind of like, because Dutch, you know, is such an unlikable character that when that happens, you're kind of like, yeah, good for you. Don't take shit from anybody.
But messing with the mob,
right? And then his little like,
his attempted coup.
Sidekick. Well, his little child sidekick gets shot by the golem guy, and then things don't. I mean, I would have just walked up to him while he was fucking around with his umbrella and just shot him a bunch of times in the head right then and there. I don't know why you were being so coy with it. It's not like driving around with like a bunch of Thompsons is subtle anyways.
True.
And he took such a long time to get that umbrella working too. It wasn't even windy.
That was my first thought. It just malfunctioned for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like some kind of infomercial, like beginning, like tired of umbrellas.
They never work.
At first, I thought that with the umbrella malfunction, that guy was like pulling out a gun or signaling or something, because it was taking so long. But no, it just wouldn't open correctly.
Well,
they were building tension, guys.
That's not how you do that.
I also thought Nick Cage shooing away the kid selling that basket of apples was very Wicker Man Nick Cage. The
No,
way
I
he
don't
like
want an
shoot-
apple. Get out
No, I
of
want
here.
an apple.
A glimpse at things to come.
Into that.
I thought he was especially yelly in this movie. Everything he said was in
very
like,
loud.
yeah,
What I've been through.
yeah.
He does have a great pencil thin mustache, though.
Ooh, there's a lot of great pencil thin mustaches in this one.
Oh, yes. I read in the Nick Cage biography that I'm going through that he was originally hired for this movie for just 3 weeks of shooting, but because of all the rewrites and the budget costs skyrocketing and everything, his 3 weeks turned into 6 months, and during that time he wasn't allowed to look at any other or pursue any other roles. And like just one day he snapped and completely trashed his entire trailer, and then went out on the streets of New York and went up to one of those street vendors who was selling some like electric remote control car and just smashed the hell out of it on his rage.
Oh my god.
Wow. Well, I mean, I get that's a good way of dealing with your problems, I guess.
Apparently Richard Gere had to like talk him down and say like, you can't do that or you won't have a career in Hollywood. So he mellowed out a little bit.
They had good chemistry, so maybe it worked kind of in the film's favor that he was kind of like volatile and looking to prove himself and young and hungry, and that's what his character was in the film too. And Richard Gere was kind of like a little bit more established at this point, so he could be like, hey, you know, I've got your best interest at heart here. I'm the protective older brother type, and that kind of worked well for the context of the film.
I also like to think it's the Richard Gere from that Simpsons episode where he talks about Buddhism with Lisa calming down Nick Cage after he's destroyed a truck full of toys.
I had a question. Was Dutch Schultz Jewish? Because he ends up killing that rival mobster at the dinner party with a skewer, and it just seemed to come out of nowhere. Like, I understand that they were rivals, but he was just like, the guy was going off on a racist rant, and then he grabs the silver pike thing out of the turkey and stabs him through the neck. Like, where is this coming from?
Well, I think it was just him. I don't think Dutch Schultz was Jewish. I'm pretty sure he was just a Dutchman.
I think he was Jewish because a couple of the other gangs mentioned. I think they mentioned him being Jewish in less polite terms.
Yeah, I think that's what set him off, because the other guy was going on a rant about an improper word for black people and then Jewish people, and I think when he said the Jewish term, that's what set him off.
That's what I got.
I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest problem with this movie, is that like all the violence seemed so like shoehorned in. Like, wait, why is he doing that for most of it?
Well, I will say, just knowing a little bit about like Prohibition era gangsters and stuff, Dutch Schultz was notorious for just flying off the handle and like killing and beating the shit out of people without like a lot of provocation. So I think that I didn't really have a problem with.
I think it would have made more sense though if that rival mobster was like insulting Schultz specifically, like said some derogatory comment about him or his girlfriend or something.
That's the thing, is that he wasn't doing it. He was deliberately trying to like obliquely get under Dutch's skin.
It still seemed very random.
You insult the kikes, if I'm allowed to use that terrible slur just in the context of pointing out how terrible this person is. Like, you know, he's saying all these bad things about them because he knows that that's gonna like make Dutch mad, but he didn't actually specifically say anything bad about him.
Yeah, but you didn't really pick up on Dutch's heritage, except in random passing. So it didn't have the same effect.
Well, that is something that the movie, I actually thought about this as I was watching it, that the film is not actually very forgiving, and this might be Mario Puzo's contribution, but the film just kind of assumes that the audience has at least a basic familiarity with like mobsters, like famous mobsters of like the Prohibition era, because it doesn't really like make much of an effort to explain who people are and like what the significance of this guy and that guy are, you know?
Yeah, I think I definitely want to watch this again after having done a lot of research into these figures, and I think that would help explain some of the context, because like you said, it throws you in without any background, and it doesn't really lead the plot points from point A to point B in always in a logical manner. It just assumes you have knowledge. What did we think of Richard Gere and Diane Lane's relationship?
Well, I mean, it's even by then, the idea of, I mean, maybe it wasn't this early, you know, like 1984, but it seems like even by then, the idea of like some guy like falling for like some gangster's mole, and then, you know, then sort of cuckolding him and then like ending up together, but at the risk of angering the mobster, was like a tired cliche. I don't know if that's true or not. It just felt like something that, you know, had been done. And I don't really know that they had like good enough chemistry together for it to like sell me, I guess.
Yeah, they had some of the most awkward dialogue I've ever heard in a romantic subplot.
Where's Dutch?
Dutch can't make it tonight. I'm your escort.
Where are we headed? We're not even in the direction of the theater.
We ain't going to the theater.
What is this, a kidnapping?
Would you like that? Because I think I'm up to it. You do move me. I don't know why, but you do move me. In unusual places.
Like where, your appendix?
My favorite line that Diane Lane delivered was right after Dutch's, I guess, wife caught her at the club, and they got in that little scuffle.
You didn't know that was his wife?
Oh, okay, yes, his wife. When they got in that scuffle at the club, and then the wife left, and then Dixie goes to check on her, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And she says, "I'll rip her nipples off." Like,
I had that one written down
what?
also.
Who says that?
Very
okay,
specific
I would like to point
threat.
out that it super wasn't obvious that was his wife.
Yes,
was, like,
thank you.
Whenever they were together, she seemed so bored.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they specifically said that it was his wife at the club, though, like when Oni and Frenchie are talking.
I just thought it was
like,
another,
Dutch is
like
here
his
with his
steady
wife.
girlfriend. I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, I picked it up later, I guess, but I didn't. They could have been more obvious about it.
They literally said it. I don't know how much more obvious you want.
I guess I just wasn't paying attention.
Ah.
I'll take that excuse.
Yeah, that was, well, and that's the thing too, is that I kind of, you know, I kind of felt like Vera was being like a pretty terrible person, in that like she gets up to leave, and then her wife is like, "Sit down," and she's like, "You sit down," and then she's like, "Stay away or I'll claw your," oh no, she goes, "I got 5 good reasons why you should stay away," and then she tries to like claw her with her nails, and she's like, get the hell away from me, you bitch. And I'm like, you are sort of cheating on like her with her husband, so yeah. I don't know why like you're so like righteously angry.
Yeah, true.
Her and Dixie kind of reminded me of the characters from All the President's Men, or I had hoped they would have taken that kind of arc where it's two characters who kind of like each other but fall in with a more powerful man, sort of unwillingly, but then become kind of caught up in his power and influence and stuff. But I don't know. I didn't really understand all her motivations, and I didn't feel sorry for her when she got what she wanted but was still unhappy. It just kind of happened.
I kind of felt sorry for her, but it was weird to me that because they didn't make it clear until the very end of the movie how young she was, because he says like, "You're not even 20."
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, because
I could see Nate just snapping at the screen like, wait a minute.
Well, I was like, this is something that should have been like integrated into the movie like much earlier, so that you can get a better sense for who she is as a person, because you feel like a lot of this, like once you know that she was like basically a teenager through a lot of this, it's a lot more understandable, and it also makes her a lot more sympathetic character. Like she realized early on that she had to use her looks, and her charm to get what she wanted, because there weren't like that many opportunities for her at the time. I don't know. I just felt like that was something that they really messed up. If it was even a reveal,
Yeah.
if it was an intentional reveal, it was terribly done. If it was just something that they decided to throw in, like just to be part of the conversation, that was a missed opportunity. So either way, it was bad.
Agreed.
But the fact that she wanted her club and that she eventually got it, and kind of like, wanted to be like somebody, I get that. I respect that, but at the same time, I just felt like she was pretty like unforgiving to like people around her who were like being directly affected by her relationship with Dutch.
I thought the better love story was Gregory Hines and I forget what
Sandman and Lila.
Yes. I really like their relationship, although their dialogue kind of repeated itself in the middle part where it's just, I want to marry you, I don't want to get married, over and over again. But her dealing with like passing for white in a racist society while he's unable to, I thought that was a more interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I also thought it was interesting, since you brought that up, I actually did, one of the things I thought that they handled really well was the fact that there's there's still like, institutionalized racism, but it's very like, it's kind of like some of the conventions are kind of relaxed. There's this idea that like, if you're black and if you're like relatively light skinned, then you can be an entertainer and you get like kind of a lot of special privileges, but you can't be a guest at the club unless you're, because that's that whole thing. Like they treat Cab Calloway, and that guy did a really good Cab Calloway.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But they Cab Calloway is like this national star whose broadcast is getting, whose performance is getting like broadcast live on the radio. But it's like he couldn't probably come into that club as a guest. And I thought, like there are moments like when Sandman goes up to the doorman, and the guy's not like, he's friendly, he's almost regretful, but he's like, sorry, this is like a whites only club. And then he's like, hey, can you get a message? And he says, sure. I kind of felt like there's a little bit more of a sympathy because of it being like an entertainment world. I just thought it was interesting, kind of showing how things weren't quite as rigid as, I don't want to pick a specific region of the country, but let's just hypothetically say, the American South during this time period. I feel like
hypothetically.
Yeah. I just felt like, it is a good job of showing how sometimes like things weren't quite as clear cut, in like there was still insidious and like terrible like racism and oppression, but at the same time there were weird rules that you had to learn how to play, and like exceptions and loopholes that you had to learn how to exploit, stuff like that. And I thought that part of it was, when it was addressed, which as you noted was one of the problems, but when it was addressed, it was handled pretty well.
Chris, what were your opinions on the race issue?
I thought it was well handled. I didn't read a lot about the plot going into the movie, so I didn't really expect it to deal with anything like that. I thought Gregory Hines was great, and I thought, I don't know the actress that played, was it Lila?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought they were both really good, and I don't know if I've seen another movie that kind of dealt with the issue of kind of shades of being black in the United States, whether it's then or even kind of now, which I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about the behind the scenes craziness that was going on.
Okay. So, this movie had, as we mentioned, an extremely troubled background. The problem started just in the beginning with the story. The original screenplay was by Mario Puzo, who, as we mentioned, wrote The Godfather, or the book that it was based on, and he was brought in to do this story, but through some issues, the writer William Kennedy was brought in, and he ended up doing over 20 drafts of different screenplays for this. And then I also think I read somewhere that they wrote like 6 or 7 revisions in like a 48-hour period while they were shooting. So that definitely contributed to the disjointed feel. And then the financing to this movie was also a cluster mug. The producer of this was Robert Evans, who helped produce Chinatown and also The Godfather. Another connection
Satan,
there.
He's also known, like one of the most vile people to ever have lived.
He got 2 credits before the movie actually started. I thought that was interesting.
Yes.
I did not notice that. So he, at this point in his career, he hadn't had a hit in a while. I think he had done Popeye, and then I forget the other 2 films that he produced, but they were both flops. And he also had a raging cocaine addiction, so he was kind of a has-been. So he and this guy named Roy Radin came together to co-finance this picture, and then Coppola was brought in at the last minute to work on rewrites and also direct. And the film already had spent like $13 million, and this was originally supposed to be like a $25 million film, and it ballooned up to $50 million. And things got so bad between Coppola and Evans that at one point Coppola banned Evans from the set. So there was tension there. Going back to the financing, a lot of the money from this came from some casino owner brothers from Vegas who put in about $30 million. There was also an Arab gun runner, I think, who put in like another $2 million.
Are you sure this isn't the plot to American Hustle?
It sounds like it. I mean, it's insane what happened. And then also, Radin got money from the government of Puerto Rico from government bonds. So it's just this whole mishmash of different financial sources.
That should have been enough to clue them in that they weren't going to make like enough money back on this. Like, we got to pay back like an Arab sheikh and like the Puerto Rican government and like some casino guys. There's no way we're going to get this fucking movie made.
So the big contentious thing that happened after the movie was that Radin was murdered, and that led to what was called the Cotton Club trial. And the whole issue with that was that Radin was first introduced to Evans by another lady named Lanny Jacobs, who was a southern white lady who worked her way up through the Miami drug trade. It was a huge cocaine trafficker, and she thought that Evans and Radin were going to cut her out of the profits of the film, so she put a hit on Radin, and he ended up getting shot like 20 times in the face, and the hitman put a stick of dynamite in his mouth after he was dead to blow up his head, so he was less easy to identify by the authorities. Yeah. And all of this was chronicled in a book by a crime novelist called Bad Company, Drugs, Hollywood, and the Cotton Club Murder, which I'm about halfway through right now, and it is insane.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any time I hear Robert Evans' name attached to a movie, I'm like, oh boy. A lot of cocaine, a lot of drugs, a lot of disappearances.
Mm-hmm.
Have definitely got to be involved.
He was never officially charged with the murder, but there's a lot of speculation that he knew about it and or approved of it.
Oh, dude, his autobiography, The Kid Stays in the Picture, is one of the most like amazing, and it's just like this unapologetically like evil like autobiography of Satan, where he's just like, I knew someone was going to break his leg, so it might as well have been me, and boy did he sign those contracts quick. And you're like, oh my god,
wow,
the statute of limitations for some of these can't have run out yet.
The Comedy Central cartoon by the same name, much more lighthearted though.
So Nicolas Cage,
yeah, the main focus of our podcast.
Yeah, I mean, not that this isn't great.
Yeah,
we got to find something. We've got to like find the crazy somewhere before Nicolas Cage starts providing enough of it.
Pretty much. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
I I would just say I thought Nicolas Cage turned in a good performance on this. It was really it's more manic than we've seen him yet, so far. I mean, but he does a pretty good job of keeping it, rooted in a believable place, I think. And even though he has like a pretty small role, it's memorable. He dies in like a very Godfather-esque way.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Godfather, that final scene where Gregory Hines is doing the tap dance and they go to kill Dutch, that reminded me of the Godfather, where Michael's at his godson's coronation or baptism or whatever, and they're like killing off all the rival gang leaders. It was like that same juxtaposition of the lighthearted and then really dark.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a nice Coppola touch.
I want to make a Broadway connection here really briefly, if I may.
Sure.
Gwen Verdon, the woman who plays Dixie's mother, originated on Broadway the role of Roxy Hart in the musical Chicago.
Oh.
And Richard Gere would then play Billy Flynn
in the movie.
I think that's in the movie, who's defending Roxy Hart.
Oh. That was another thing I loved about this movie, is they would cast actors to portray like the classic Hollywood actors like Charlie Chaplin and James Cagney and stuff. It was just a nice little treat to see them at the Cotton Club.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it is worth mentioning that Richard Gere did like perform all of his own cornet solos.
Yep.
That was pretty cool.
I did not believe that at first because it looked very fake, his playing, I thought.
I saw it in the credits and went in the opening credits and went back because I wasn't sure I saw that, and then wasn't sure it was all that worth it at the end because it looked fake.
Also, the orchestration here was done by John Barry, who is known for creating the James Bond theme.
Yes. They know what they're doing, the John Barry Orchestra.
So, a lot of incredible talent, but just not that great of a movie, unfortunately.
Well, let's sum up our thoughts about this movie.
Yes, let's. Would we recommend watching this to other people?
Well, you start, and let's do Chris first. Chris?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I would recommend it. It wasn't, I might not watch it again anytime soon, but it certainly was a fine way to kill 2 hours and brought up more than I thought it would.
Okay, Bonnie?
It depends on what you're in the mood for. I don't know that I would necessarily tell people to go watch it. But it was enjoyable for the most part.
Nate?
Yeah, I would say watch it. I mean, if you're a fan of period pieces, then you will like this movie like for that reason alone. But there also was like something they were trying to say. They didn't always succeed in saying it, but they had a lot of good ideas, and enough of them show up in the final product that I think, combined with how well it's shot and how good it looks, it's definitely worth a watch.
I would also say it's a good watch. I mean, it's not an amazing movie, but it's a good motivator to go out and actually research all of these historical figures and the Cotton Club itself and get more context about it. I'm definitely going to, now that I've seen it. And you can definitely appreciate the artistry. I would love to have the soundtrack. The music in here is phenomenal. And to just appreciate it for like the production and the visual elements it's worth it. So, thanks for that, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving on to our final segment, it's time for
Movie Review Haikus.
So, movie review haiku is the most elegant way to review films. Haikus are a form of Japanese poetry. There are 3 lines. The first line is 5 syllables, the second is 7, and the last is 5, and they're just a fun way for us to sum up our thoughts on this picture. So I'm going to start because I only have one this time, and I can get it out of the way. So my haiku is, jazz dancing is great. Fishburne, beat that white man's ass. Diane Lane, Razzie.
Profound.
Chris, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, I have Hey, Nicolas Cage. This is a Coppola flick. Stay out of the booth.
Nate, you can go ahead.
Okay. Prohibition. I sure love the aesthetic, but that's about it.
That's a good one. All right,
Good.
Chris, and then your final two.
It's a dance movie, also a gangster movie. It does neither well.
Very good review.
Perfect.
And then the last one I have is this is what happens when no one can buy a drink, but can buy a gun.
That's
Yeah.
They're
pretty
both
profound.
amazing. I can't pick which one is better.
I think that last one is a good encapsulation of the movie. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty perfect, pretty spot on there.
So, did we have any final thoughts or anything else we wanted to talk about the film before we close out?
I was just glad to see Lawrence Fishburne again.
Who was credited as Larry Fishburne, which I know he now hates.
I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, he was Larry Fishburne.
Okay.
Now I've heard that he's freaked out at people recently for calling him Larry.
Well, we won't make that mistake when we all eventually meet him after he hears our podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, when he comes on to be a guest star for our retroactive look back at the early films of Nick Cage, he'll be more than happy to come on to a podcast dedicated to another actor that's not him.
With the promise that we'll get to his career as soon as this one's done.
Yeah.
If ever.
I'll be there for that one.
We'll call it Big Fishburne, and we will talk about the movies of Lawrence Fishburne.
Rumble
Sounds like a
Fishburne.
plan.
Rumble Fishburne, yes. That'll be where we have like a throwdown between which two Fishburne films we prefer.
So thanks for listening, everybody. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/TheWhedonFan1, on Twitter at TheWhedonFan, and on Facebook, just search The Whedon Fan. And Nate, did you want to plug anything?
Oh yeah, you can find me over at thenatezone.tumblr.com. I am at Nate Treese over on Twitter, even though I'm not on it that much.
Bonnie?
You can find me at thebonstergirl.tumblr.com.
And Chris?
Currently, I don't have anything, but maybe if you see me again, I will.
Sounds
Ooh.
good. You can find this podcast on my YouTube channel. It should hopefully be up on iTunes by the time this airs, so be sure to subscribe and rate and like us, because that helps with our search engine optimization.
You don't even have to be sincere about it.
Yeah, it could just be a hateful 5-star review. We don't care.
Yeah. You could have like some kind of weird absurdist review where you're like, it's 5 stars and the stars represent like my burning rage for how much time was wasted. That's fine.
Mm-mm.
And if you have any comments or criticisms or want to leave us your own movie review haiku, be sure to check us out on our social media. You can find us on Tumblr at enterthecage.tumblr.com, on Twitter at enterthecagepod, and on Facebook, just search Enter the Cage. And now it's time to put the bunny back in the box, but we'll see you next time on Enter the Cage. Enter the Cage is a Curious Manatee production. Executive producer Tyler Flynn, technical consultant Dave Rodriguez, logo design by Jen Ng, and theme song by Johnny D. Rod.